of you know her as Miss Grissom. Some of you know her as head resident. Some know her as Dean of Women, some as Dean of Students, some as Vice President, and some of you know her as Professor of English. But you all know her. Dr. Coleen Grissom.
Notice none of you know me as Coleen, as it should be. Long ago, but not so very far away, when I first began to write and read speeches to audiences, or more accurately, when I first started to write personal essays and then type them out and stand up and read them aloud and call them speeches, I vowed, I assured everyone and myself that I would never, ever copy anything from one speech and put it in the other. Every single speech of my life would be totally different from all other speeches. They would be filled with fresh surprises, fresh observations, perspectives, points of view, and a whole new batch of moving quotations from my reading. I felt certain I would never, ever, as I have heard so many speakers do, simply recycle old stuff. Well, that was then. This is now. I first realized the problem when the Trinity University Press contracted with me to publish a sampling of those speeches that I've given over my career. And in 2008, that publication appeared. And it's available at a very low price for you outside to be signed inside here. As I was working on those, I discovered to my dismay that I didn't simply retitle talks and knowingly recycle old speeches. I repeated themes and quotations that guide my life ad nauseum, we might say. So, when you know that, it seems that we probably ought to say, well, she knows that, so she has decided to do something different this time. When Mary Kay contacted me and said, will you do a talk down memory lane and beyond for Alumni Weekend, the first thing I did was locate, and it's easier these days thanks to the computerization and my technological genius, I could locate previous talks by that title and see what I could reuse today. Since I assume most of you don't show up for each and every one of these weekends, I, as my current students would phrase it, thought in my head, I think that's opposed to thought in my pancreas, that I could get away with using some parts of the speech without apology. But still I was feeling a little guilty, and I couldn't decide whether to do this or not, and I looked at a list of those who had pre-registered for the weekend. And I remembered some of you, and what I realized was, you never were particularly focused, even when you were youth, nor were you known for being attentive in class. Some of you even had trouble remembering the very few basic campus conduct rules and regulations. So, I bet, even if you heard me give this talk yesterday, it'll all be fresh and you know it's true. As I have aged, and Lord knows have I aged since some of you were undergraduates, I have become increasingly obsessive compulsive. In truth, I have become downright anal. And so I do everything, I outline everything, from my HEB shopping list to my chores for the day. So here's the outline for today's remarks. Introduction, that was it. Secondly, an update, not whether you care or not, on what I'm doing these days. Section 3, a few non-defensive comments to explain my reasons for continuing to teach here full-time as I gallop toward my 80th birthday. Number 4, some impressions of today's Trinity University undergraduate. And number 5, inevitably, I will close with some reminders, naggings if you will, of the importance of your continuing to celebrate your Trinity education by your continuing to stretch your mind and to develop your intellect by, among other things, reading and reading good things that I have recommended for you especially. My alumni colleagues have asked me to prepare a list of things I've read recently that I recommend, and I hope you will get a copy of that. Thank God for the DVR. I am also able to read a few chapters and then still have time to see The Good Wife and Criminal Minds day after day. Update on what I've been doing. In 2001, I retired from my position as Vice President for Student Affairs and Dean of Students. I moved away from the university residence on Oakmont Court, where I had lived for the past 2 decades. And I reverted to my East Texas redneck roots by building a small limestone house with a metal roof in the shadow of a windmill on a hill on Cordillera Ranch on Highway 46 in the hill country. I even have a hog wire and cedar post fence. There I reside very, very happily with 2 indoor cats, a dozen freshwater fish, 2 saltwater fish, 2 black clowns, a matched pair whose names are George and Wheezy Jefferson, 4 toy poodles, and most recently, a real dog, a stray that a colleague's daughter had found rescued from a Walmart parking lot in Houston, Texas. Wally is his name. What else could it be? Ironically, though, in spite of your memories of me, I am not in my own home, the alpha bitch. I am still to accept that, and most days I have to just acknowledge I am enslaved to my cats and my dogs. I do what they want me to do when they want it, and sometimes I suspect they are a cult and I am being held prisoner. I already dropped the real important fact of my life, subtly. I do still teach full-time at Trinity University. I teach courses in the contemporary novel and something called the literary imagination. I also lead book discussions for, let's call them, more mature students, 12 weeks a year, a group in Bernie and a group at the San Antonio Public Library Foundation. Happily, I even have some Trinity alums in these classes, including Kate Bremer, Virginia Thomas Powell, Mary Bishop Kennedy, and Gretchen Seiberling Richter. Sometimes they get out of hand and try to take over the discussion, but you know how alums can be. Everyone says to me, why in the world would you retire? Look how old you are. But then I talk to friends who've retired, such as recently Larry Kimmel and Sarah Burke, and they say to me, you should retire because then you can do what you love to do. Well, hell, I am doing what I love to do. I love to teach. I love to lead discussions. I love to write vicious things that they can't decipher on their papers. And so when they ask what it says, you know, get a life, you're an idiot. I say, it says, excellent use of transition. So I love it. Outside of teaching, I sometimes find myself serving as Ms. of ceremonies for fundraisers of organizations to which I have a commitment. Most importantly, I have served 22 years as Ms. of ceremonies for the annual Cancer Therapy and Research Center's Book and Author Luncheon, because, of course, like most of you, that dreaded cancer disease has taken many loved ones from me, as it has from all of us. The third section is, why am I still doing all this? Well, the economy has a wee bit of influence. I was born and raised in the first Great Depression, so I still hoard paper towels and toilet paper, and it should be no surprise that I am grateful for good health and a profession in which retirement isn't mandatory. I also keep on my desk a favorite New Yorker cartoon. An ant with a huge rock on her back is crawling up a steep hill. As she passes a ladybug at the side of the trail, the ant observes, I'll keep doing it as long as it's fun. And it is still fun, most of the time. I do in spite of myself. I tried not to do it when you were here, and I still fight it. In spite of myself, I generally admire, respect, and God help me, love many of my students. It seems to me that even the ones today sincerely do wish to either hone or develop their communication skills. They want to be able to express themselves with lucidity, simplicity, and euphony, and I enjoy helping them do that. The students now, just as the students when you were here, continue to test me, and now, just as then, sometimes I fail the test. Only last fall, in my seminar on humor and literature, a man who hated reading some of the essays really got crazy about the essays by David Sedaris. And I asked him, why did he not like Sedaris? And the young man said, the writing is too intellectual and I'm homophobic. Alas, I think I responded most inappropriately with something like this. I remember exactly what I said. If that's your view of college, you should have gone to Baylor. You would be spared intellectual challenge, and there are no homosexuals there. Well, I immediately felt awful about that. I don't know what I was talking about. Who could be sarcastic about that fine sister institution? And I really should have applauded the young man's candor, but I was just confused initially over what irritated me most. That he had a phobia about being intellectual or about gays. I couldn't decide which made me more unhappy. But before I could apologize and recoup and recover, another man in the class, one of the literal types, piped up and said, "That's not true, Dr. Grissom. My cousin goes to Baylor and she's a lesbian." So, once again, I was baited by students. They tested me, and I was wrong about Baylor. But I digress. The reason that I keep teaching is not that it's easy, but it really comes down to the fact that I am a between you and me person, and I am in a between you and I world. So I work hard all the time to speak well and to inspire my students to speak and to write well. And also, I happen to be a liberal Democrat in a redneck and red-colored part of the world, a Tea Party area, if you will. I managed again today to drive past the pasture on Ralph Fair, where there is a huge sign that reads "Ted Cruz is a hero." I was able to get past it yet again without climbing over the barbed wire fence and being arrested for vandalism. So, you can see why it's a joy for me to come to this halcyon campus. Coming here twice a week gets me out of the boonies, which is good for the boonies and good for me. Though Trinity has changed greatly since some of you were here, what remains constant is that this is still a community of scholars, and a community that abides by that old commitment to excellence that some of us wrote many years ago. Yeah, I love to read it. This university strives to create an atmosphere in which basic civility and decency are expected, mutual respect and open communication are fostered, and sound religious faith and expression are encouraged. That's a pretty special thing, and I continue to cherish being part of a community that has that as its commitment. The only other activity I'm spending a lot of time on these days is writing another book, which is the reason you need to get this one so you can start the whole shelf. Initially, this was going to be a book of lists, because I said I'd list everything, not only what I'm going to get at each of you, in the order in which I'm going to get it. And if I finally have moved the pet food section, I am ruined for the day. But I am now expanding these lists into essays. And so I will soon have a book ready to get to the press. But here's some examples of some of the lists and topics that the essays will concern. Reasons for using the active rather than the passive voice verb. Things that are better now that I am older. Things that aren't so swell now that I am older. Moments in student life hell. Novels I will never, ever, ever read again. Most terrifying scenes from films. Though we aren't to sweat the small stuff, here's some small stuff that drenches me. And one of my favorite lists that I've had such fun with, sex scenes from movies that make me regret I'm a maiden lady. Kevin Costner and what's her face in the back of the cab, remember? Jane Fonda and John Voight coming home. Go get to your DVDs and start ordering. I love to teach. I love to introduce my students to the best of the best. I went into class Thursday trying to dance a little buck and wing because Alice Munro had won the Nobel Prize for Literature, praise God. Nobody in the class but me had heard of Alice Munro. But I introduced them to the best of the best. Margaret Atwood, Cormac McCarthy, Toni Morrison, Michael Chabon, Ian McEwan, Jennifer Egan. And then I made the mistake again. I asked them, what kind of prose styles do you like, after I've shown them the ones that I like, which means the ones they should like. And they give me things like this. The dark, drafty old house was lopsided and decrepit, leaning in on itself, the way an aging possum carrying a very, very heavy, overcooked drumstick in his mouth might list to one side if he were favoring a torn Achilles tendon, assuming possums had them. I shared with them the great novels by Kate Atkinson, who writes mystery novels with her character Jackson Brody. One of my favorites is Left Early, Started Early, Took My Dog. So they thought, okay, we'll try mysteries. Bishop threw back the shot of bourbon and reflected on his career as a private dick, a profession he always thought of as perfect for a man named Richard, who kept to himself and was often unkind to others. Or worse yet, samples of prose they love. The smooth hand I was caressing felt as if it belonged to a Persian monk that had been rubbing moisturizing body lotion on his fellow monks all day. But not in a gay way. Come on, these are monks. When, in all actuality, the hand belonged to a body that I had pulled out of the Potomac for forensic investigation. And finally, in ignoring my reading recommendations, instead of reading 50 Shades of Grey, I thought I would ask the students, what kind of romantic scenes, scenes of sexuality do you like? And this one I got. The first time I saw her, she took my breath away with her long blonde hair that flowed over her shoulders like cheese sauce on a bed of nachos, making my stomach grumble as she stepped into the room, her red dress locking in curves better than a Ferrari at the Grand Prix. They need help. That's why I'm still teaching. Students, even from my past, put me in my place. A few weeks ago, the university held its annual service awards ceremony, and I went because I was told I had to, because they don't count well in human resources. They start when I came back to Trinity, and so I got my 50-year service award. I really have been here 53 and a half years, but that's beside that. I left to go. I hated it here. Remember, I came back for $6,000. Jim Laurie talked me into it. I thought, all the money in the world. Well, I'd give a lot for $6,000 today, but anyway. So, when they called me, when the woman called me from Human Resources, she said, it's time for you to be honored again. What would you like to have as your accolade? And I said, well, let me think. The watch you offered me was kind of a tinker toy kind of thing. I don't think I want that again. I have about as many mantle clocks made of maroon and white plastic as I can find places for in my home. I'd like some money so I could commission something. So they said, all right, you may commission something from Pat Gavin Metalsmith over on McCullough. And so I was happy to do that. I have this wonderful lapis. But I have to go into Pat Gavin's, and one of the jewelers that she handles was my first marijuana bust. So, and every now and again I run into that person. All I can tell you is, gamma. And so, I'm not safe anywhere. So go to Pat Gavin's and sniff around. They're having a good time. And in my leisure, what else I'm doing? I write a bi-monthly column for the Trinitonian, and here's what I wanted to share with you. The alums are coming, the alums are coming. Trinity University's Alumni Weekend looms on the horizon with its influx of current and potential donors and supporters of their beloved alma mater. Some surely look back on their years here on this halcyon campus as the happiest years of their lives. As parents and high school teachers so often assure students these years will be, hoping that no one will bother to wonder what this might be for all the decades following college. Others, alas, hold grudges about their undergraduate experience. It's those I am far from eager to see. Except for the last 9 years of my career, I wasn't only an English teacher. For the 4 preceding decades, I had held titles ranging from the ones you heard Mary Kay list. I was, you see, one of those charged with enforcing rules of conduct and acting, and one of the first to act in response to emergencies. Since most of those reading this are students, current students, fully aware of and grateful for our enlightened policies, the respect for rights of individuals, including students, the delicious, varied, and reasonably priced food in the food plans, the well-maintained and competently managed residence halls, the focused, inspiring, accessible faculty, I could go on and on, but you get the idea. You know who and where you are, and you can't imagine having anything about which to hold a grudge against Trinity. There are no doubt young adults who already understand the wisdom of these lines from the novelist John P. Marquand. Perhaps the best way of judging whether or not certain years in your life were happy might be to determine how much you remember about them. For the happiest years were those in which events blended with each other so naturally that all that remained was a recollection of growth and achievement. That's what I hope the recollections of Trinity University are for our graduates. So the question is, why then would I, with my many years of service on the campus, feel even a twinge of dread with hundreds of alums invading campus for the weekend? Let me answer by listing just a sampling of the questions I get at these gatherings. What's the curfew these days for the girls' dorms? As if we have dorms and we have girls. Why are you wearing slacks on upper campus? What happened to the dress code? Have you gotten rid of those Greeks yet? Why wasn't my son admitted here? Is it true that you let boys and girls reside in the same dorms? What's this honor code thing? What do you mean students receive due process? We never did. Why did you quit those tennis scholarships? How old is Leroy? What happened to the Crystal Pistol? Is there still a Bombay Bicycle Club? Do you enforce the 21-year-old drinking age? Do you miss the days when the legal age was 18? Why is the library so big? Who moved the Eugenia Miller fountain? I could swear it was on the other side of Northrop. And whose damn cats are those? You got a smattering of the reasons that I get anxious as Alumni Weekend approaches. And I think the other thing that is really, really hard for me is I get from so many of you, I've already had it this morning, what I'm sure is well-intentioned. Dean or Dr. Grissom, you haven't changed a bit. That's got to be well-intentioned. However, when you think about it, what in the hell must I have looked like when I was 30? When I was 40? When I was 50? 60? How bad was I at 70? It puts me near the freezer with the looking forward when I get home to a mild gin martini without vermouth. That's what it does for me. I guess I would like it less if you said to me, good God, how did you get so old? Didn't you used to be a perfect size 10? Well, yes. What happened to your neck? And are those gnarled fingers I see? Well, they are. They are. I point to students, I point like this, the one I'm pointing at is here, and it goes there. So I say, Bill, I know you're not Sally. Jeez. Anyway, so if anyone says anything to me, what I'm going to say in response to any of those is, why I have the gnarled fingers, why I'm not a size 10 anymore, why the neck is gone. This is simply a result of my having my life touched over more than 5 decades by bright, self-assured little weasels such as the likes of you. That's what's done. Current Trinity students, I've already told you some things about them. You already know as you read about the university that the diversity of the student body continues to increase and in wonderful kinds of ways. I continue to delight in saying that we have every sort of diversity on this campus except intellectual, that everybody on this place is intelligent, or at least has the potential to be. Trinity, as you know, continues to expand geographical, cultural, socioeconomic, and ethnic diversity. We have been remarkably successful making this campus environment very rich and very exciting, but it's not been easy. One of my favorite memories concerns our trying to teach the dean of the university, the great Dean Bruce Thomas, the correct pronunciations. We first began to get students who were not just white people from Houston. We were trying to teach Dean Thomas how to pronounce Hispanic student names at commencement ceremonies. And at ceremonies one year, Bruce kept calling a student's name Imaho Honis, and nobody came forward because Emma Jo Jones was waiting in the background. And it's even worse now. I also still struggle with them. Last fall, at my first year seminar, I had a wonderful woman from Botswana, which is not a suburb of Houston, whose name is Outwile. Her last name is Matome. As I was struggling with it, she said, "You can call me Ms. T," and I'm happy with that. She is Ms. T to me. As always, when I start getting these remarks ready, I ask my students anonymously to answer a few questions about what they like and what they don't like, and I try not to be ashamed that what they don't like is the same stuff you didn't like. I can't believe we can't manage some of this. Top of every list I got was, had to scream, Aramark's terrible overpriced food. The Diamond Hall food. I remember the days when I could call Blanche King, dialing the numbers, and say, serve a bad meal. And whatever the students were mad about, they'd forget about because of the bad meal. And I want to say to the students, you think the food is bad? Wait till you see what's in my refrigerator when I have to prepare my own. They hate the alcohol policy and want to know why in the world do we have to comply with state law. Parking, we don't think it's fair that we have to walk a block. Remember when we opened Prassel, y'all all had a fit saying, we can't make it to class. They still are having a fit. And they hate Cardiac Hill. It's the only exercise some of them get on their way to violating the law. And of course, the one that you've never heard, y'all never complained about, no student input on any decisions made around here. Well, there we are. What they like. They love the faculty, the excellence of the faculty, and the accessibility of the faculty. And when I saw that this was the thing they loved the most, I have to tell them, faculty members choose to live out their careers here, not because of our out-of-sight high salaries or our really light teaching load. That's just not the case. But because they're here, for the reasons they should be here, they love working with bright, mostly assertive, engaging young adults. What a gift it is to work with these young people. The students also admire themselves. They love their peers. They love being in classes and living in residence halls with other intelligent people. They can't get over how great it is. And I want to tell them, wait till you're out and you're in the company and it's not the same people anymore. They also love, and this has changed for some of you, they say it's really easy to get involved these days. There are so many organizations and activities that are readily available, accessible, a wide range of activities. There's something for anybody, no matter what you're looking for. And if you can't find it, you can organize it and make the organization exist yourself. And one response I particularly cherish, a senior wrote, while I did not meet my husband in college, thank God I sure as hell met myself. Isn't that good? I like that. I like that one. I like that one. And then there's a list I use every year at this because I ask this first years. I'm not teaching first years now, but I asked the first years when I was. What have you learned in your first year at Trinity? And this is just so hilarious. Number one, you can't hide. Remember that. Number two, it's better to be yourself than pretend to be something you're not. His use of description was wonderful, is a good response if you haven't been listening to class discussion. I really don't like that one. Liquor before beer and you're clear, beer before liquor and you've never been sicker. I cuss more, and I am more culturally and racially tolerant, more flexible, and more knowledgeable. So isn't that all good? I think that's worth their money. Finally, in hopes of motivating you to keep on keeping on, hauling those rocks, my suggestion comes as no surprise, and no matter how challenging it would be, that I want you to read more. And you can't read because you don't have time for solitude. Let me talk to you about the advantages of solitude. It's so essential, you've got to find it. D.H. Lawrence says it best of all. To be alone is one of life's greatest delights. Thinking one's own thoughts, doing one's own little jobs, seeing the world beyond and feeling oneself uninterrupted in the rooted connection with the center of all things. You need to read more books, more essays, more poems, ones, if possible, that stretch you, that challenge you, amuse you, fill you with gratitude, simply delight you. And when you make that time for reading and have that fun, and know what matters, what provides fun and inspiration for you, enriches your life, jot it down and send it to someone else. It's so easy to send things to someone else these days, thanks to email and all that stuff. I know you think you don't have time, but I'm going to nag you anyhow and offer some encouragement from writers as to why I think you should be reading more. Updike, whom I loved so much, simply said, "My only duty was to describe reality as it had come to me, to give the mundane its beautiful due." I love the mundane. The mundane is important. And also, Bernard Malamud said, "The purpose of the writer is to keep civilization from destroying itself." And it does seem to be destroying itself and the earth on which it lives as fast as we can. Praised less loftily, the short story writer Laurie Moore said, "Literature exists so that readers can spend time with people they would never want to meet in real life." And I do like that one. I do like that one. You know, I have quotations. I love quotations. They are all around me so that I can get my life back in focus. Here are the ones that are guiding my life right now. The late Nora Ephron, and I'm looking at the ages in the audience. "You do get to a certain point in life where you have to realistically, I think, understand that the days are getting shorter, and you can't put off things and put off thinking you'll get to them someday. If you really want to do them, you better do them. There simply are too many people getting sick, and sooner or later you will. So I'm very much a believer in knowing what it is that you love doing so you can do a great deal of it." And Katharine Graham, "To love what you do and feel that it matters. How could anything be more fun?" And from Steve Jobs, "You've got to find what you love. As with all matters of the heart, you'll know when you find it, and as with any great relationship, it just gets better and better as the years roll on. So keep looking, don't settle." From the Trinity graduate Naomi Shihab Nye, "Walk around feeling like a leaf. Know you can tumble any second. Then decide what to do with your time." Stephen King's character Vera in his novel Dolores Claiborne, "Sometimes being a bitch is all a woman has to hold on to." Kurt Vonnegut, "And I urge you to please notice when you are happy and exclaim or murmur or think at some point, 'If this isn't nice, I don't know what is.'" The poet Maxine Cumin, "How we treat the animals in our keeping defines us as human beings." Barbara Kingsolver, you've all heard me read this one. "What keeps you going isn't some fine destination, but just the road you're on and the fact that you know how to drive. You keep your eyes open, you see this damn to hell world you got born into, and you ask yourself, what life can I live that will let me breathe in and out and love somebody or something and not run off screaming into the woods." John Hoyt, "Figure out what you care about and live a life that shows it." And finally, Frederick Buehler, "Listen to your life. See it for the fathomless mystery that it is, in the boredom and pain of it, no less than in the excitement and gladness. Touch, taste, smell your way to the holy and hidden heart of it, because in the last analysis, all moments are key moments, and life itself is grace." You can tell that I consider my life a life of many blessings and much grace, remembering and being grateful for the influences that have shaped your life when you were at Trinity University and how you shaped ours when you were here is an important part of our maturing, I think. I cherish my association with you. I rejoice in having you here today to remind me how blessed I am that I am doing what I love and loving what I do, and that you help me keep from running off screaming into the woods. Thank you so much.